Hey, so going back in time, 1971, I was probably like 12, 13 years old.
I was two.
And it was my parents' 25th anniversary, and the we had a party. They had a party for it and all that stuff. But my all my siblings except me put together a trip for them to go. They were going to go out to
It
Colorado.
was a surprise,
It
right?
was yeah, it was a surprise, and didn't say anything to me about the whole thing. And the day that it was, I remember it was a Sunday afternoon after we got back from church. They sat down with them and said, by the way, and told them the date of when it'd be and all this. And we we put together this amount of money for you guys to take the trip to Colorado. And I looked at them and I was like, oh, I remember pulling I think it was my oldest brother aside and go, why didn't you ask me? What is that all about? I got really upset by it, because um, and I just,
They planned the surprise and didn't include you.
yeah, and I stormed out of the house. I sat on the front porch just crying my eyes out, and my brother came out and he, tried to comfort me by saying, well, we didn't, we were afraid you would tell the secret, you couldn't, you know, and I will say, if looking back at it, I wasn't always the best at keeping secrets, when it came to Christmas gifts and stuff like that. I'd end up, as they're unwrapping it, which I now have a daughter that does the same thing sometimes, or
Oh,
I did anyway.
he was little.
But so I can see part of it as I look back on it, but at the time it really hurt my feelings that
Mhm.
they didn't include me in what they were doing for my parents, and I got over it pretty quickly. But that was a tough time,
Maybe we
and
should tap on that.
yeah, really tap on the
Even
past
though
history.
I felt left out, but these things do affect us, our feelings.
Yeah.
Well, hello everyone. This is Gina
And this is Don.
with Focused Healthy Family. This is podcast number 213, and we are talking about facing our feelings part 4 and looking at the effects um, our feelings with adult children as well as small children and other family members when you're managing caring for an aging loved one. And it's kind of the series we've done. So be sure to look back on the other episodes. But first, we have a tip, right, Don?
Yeah. And of course, we go back to Caregiving 101 by Mike Collins. It's the 101 Ways to Keep Caregiving from Making You Crazy. And that we know is true. And this one, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but since we were talking about children, they talk about how you might be able to entertain children when you're a caregiver. And so it went through about 4 or 5 steps. First one is dress up, get out old clothes and stuff like that, and just let them kind of be whatever they want to be
Play
in that.
dress up, yeah.
Yeah. The second one is makeup time. If you can find women finding some old makeup that you might have and let them just kind of paint their face and kind of
Or let them put makeup on you.
do yeah, that's true too. Um, hose them down, get them outside.
Sounds terrible.
It does sound kind of
Not
terrible.
and right now it's like 25 degrees here.
That'd be a good time to go out and do it then. But build something. One of the things we always did was, having the Lego sets and things like that and build different, all kinds of stuff. We built houses to planes to whatever and encourage the arts, being able to give them a box, oh, a box of magazines, some safe scissors and glue sticks, and can lead them into their world of making their own little collages and things like that.
Yeah.
So
Goals collage.
it's something to think about when today we're talking about the adult children, but also some of the smaller children and what they're going to go through in this wonderful aging journey that we have to all go through at some point in our life.
And before that, we have just a little joke. So Jefferson says, "Why was the tree so sad?" Olivia said, "I'm stumped." Jefferson says, "Because it couldn't get to the root of its problems." So, feelings.
So let me, I did a chart, and I got to remember where I got this chart, but it broke down. I think I actually did it through AI, but it broke down some of the challenges that we go through as adult children outside of the caregiver, the other
Other people, other
siblings and
family
stuff like that.
members.
Um, and what they give there, the common emotional struggles, the role reversal grief, it's even the siblings can get this idea that they've kind of changed from being the children to being the parent of their adult or their parents. Conflict of emotions, worried about, well, you run into guilt, you run into a lot of different stuff with that kind of feeling of, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the wrong thing? All that decision making stress that you have to a lot of times decide for the parent what's what's going on for them, what kind of decisions they have to make because they always can't make it
And
for
so if you're
themselves.
not that primary person making those decisions, imagine the feelings other family members are going through. Say it's you're caring for your father and you're the one primarily doing it, but you've got a brother or sister, whoever, and the impact on them, right? They're going to have very different feelings than what you're having because we all have these experiences differently. But yeah, they might be going through some of their own emotions and being sensitive to um,
Well, that's what they talk about, the sibling conflict that um you know what you're what you're going to run into as far as making, if you are the caregiver for it, or you're the what am I call the mandated caregiver, the one that's doing something about it,
the
that
managing caregiver.
yeah, that might be a better one to do. But you have the other siblings sometimes that you have to be able to um, tell about the story, tell what, and try to get what would be the word I'm trying to, a consignment, or to get them all together on making a
Consensus.
decision.
Yeah, to make decisions, but looking at the feeling part of it, right? We're all going to have different emotions. Some people might withdraw, some people might get overwhelmed and need their space, some people might want to be more involved and it might help them even though, and this is where things like, oh, don't be sad, don't cry, don't worry,
Yeah.
there's no place for any of that, right? Everyone experiences it differently, and we have to be allowed to feel these feelings. It is sad when we have a loved one who has a chronic illness or, just went on hospice or, is declining, maybe dementia related illness, whatever it is that and that they need extra care and support. We have feelings and we need opportunity to express those. Um, I know my siblings and I would talk together before we talked to my mother back when we were dealing with the care of my dad. So there are different support networks. We had to get on board to be able to support her and but also having that space, having that person you can go to and just vent and complain and release those feelings, writing them out in a journal, tapping through them, finding tools, resources to properly vent those emotions and realizing that not everyone handles their emotions the same way and not everyone has the same emotional maturity and they might snap at you or trying to set that aside and trying not to take it personally that that's about them and what they're going through and are going to handle it differently and we can't change them. We can share resources but it's totally up to them to make those decisions when it comes to other adults.
Well, and the next thing they talk about is the fear of repeating patterns. Um, and I know as I've gotten older and I'm seeing changes going on with my family, I worry about and have kind of this feelings of, will that be me? Will I end up in that same place? And I can imagine that goes through just about all the,
Yeah, if you got, a parent has cancer or whatever it is, is that going to happen to me? Am I going to be in this place? Then are my kids going to have to do what I'm doing now for my parent? And yeah, it can certainly stir up um, lots of emotions, lots of feelings. And
well, the last one they talk about for the adult is, balancing life pressures. And, you think about it, because we talk about the sandwich children, sandwich generation that are taking care of children as far as also taking care of their adults. Plus, you have, all these different factors that you have to be able to, again, find ways to calm yourself because they can get quite a lot of pressure to it.
and then talking about, helping younger people, people under whatever, they
At
might
any
be
age.
18-year-olds, but just people who are still dependents, but the younger they are, the different ability to understand what's happened. Why is grandpa sick? When's grandpa going to get better? When's, understanding that level and realizing not to overshare. Um, this was kind of always a rule of thumb with my kids is just giving enough information to answer their questions, not over and, keeping it simple. And if they wanted to know more, letting, but keeping it at a level that they could best understand, but realizing their feelings could look different and that they're valid, though, what they're feeling is valid.
Well, in the children's side, they talk about helplessness. You know, I that one's a little harder to imagine how a child feels that helplessness. I don't know if you can think about it as far as
Well, yeah, that what can they do about it,
yeah.
And yeah, that they feel out of control. I think back to when I was a kid and riding in the car with my parents, it just felt like I just felt safe when if my parents were driving, it's like I was safe. And I remember when that kind of disappeared, realizing that no, you're not just safe because you're there with your parents. And so it's very vulnerable and, for a child to see a dying, grandparent or whatever that, and then they feel like they want to make it better. They want to, what can they do about it? Because they're, young children are living in the world of sharing with others. And if you hurt somebody, you do something to make it right and you apologize or you do something nice for them. And so they're thinking in those terms. And so, yeah, there's certainly a helplessness there.
Well, and thinking back, because I lost a sister when and I was only 3 at the time. Um, and I didn't understand it.
She was 5.
But I was talking about me. I was 3.
Yeah,
She
and
was
she was
5. Yeah.
5.
And, but I remember what it led me to was so much fear about my parents, especially my mom, that if she was sick, is she going to die too? That kind of emotion went through me. Oh, I mean, it's still kind of, even though she's gone, it still plays in me that there's some fear about somebody dying, but yeah, losing the friend. And in it, I also look at as I got into grade school, um, let's see, in first grade, I got to know this girl used to sit right behind me, and we were, I think we were through 2 grades together, and we did all kinds of stuff, had a lot of fun together doing stuff. And then the third time, she didn't show up in school, and it was a really weird kind of emotions, and I felt so sad at the time that and I didn't nobody would really explain to me
This was the 60s, and you
what
didn't know
what
where she went. You didn't know what happened. If
and I found out it took quite a bit to find out, but she moved away. I don't know where I think it was in Phoenix or something like that, you know. But yeah, it was that was a sad feeling that, and she wasn't gone or anything, but she was gone out of my life.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, just realizing that sometimes the literalness the kids experience, well, grandpa went to heaven. Okay, when can we go visit him in heaven? When does he's on a vacation? When's he coming back? Um,
yeah, it's kind of sad.
Pause a minute. What's up? Another thing to think about with children, you're dealing with a aging loved one, dealing with their declining health or changes in their health. Realizing this could have a different impact on children of different ages, and they could feel cheated as far as the time if you're having to spend more time with them. They might be acting out in funny ways. It could be related to not understanding. Um, what do we say, Don? Behavior is a foreign language, and we need to be
It's
tuned in to what's going on and what that could mean. Can they have some special time if they're going to go visit this person? Honoring, what works for them, right? Some kids would be overwhelmed by a hospital room and tubes and different things, understanding how we can make this, something positive to the best of the ability. And maybe um, for some, it just needs to be short. You want to go visit your mom, you have kids with you, you're traveling from out of town. Can you arrange for someone else to pick them up or so that their visit can be much shorter? And so, kind of thinking through some of these things. And even though maybe you're dealing with a lot of stress, maybe your parent is dying and you're really emotional about it, and you're like, kids, you got to go see grandma. We got to see her one last time. And just thinking about how that could be putting pressure on them and their ability to take that in and understand it is so very different from
Hmm.
yours. And it's different for every person because we process things differently. And, our brain does not fully develop into our mid to late 20s as far as our processing, um, our higher level cognitive strategies. And this involves dealing with loss and things like this. And so there's going to be um, a different level of understanding and processing, even for someone in their early 20s, that there could be for an older person.
Well, they talk too about early grief, and I think this really falls not only for young kids, it's talking about just about everybody. When you've got somebody that's going through a long-term illness, you can you're slowly saying goodbye to them over a long period of time, and at the end of it, like I know with my brother, they weren't even really there anymore for for them to be grieving over. But
As
you know,
far as the person with dementia, you said wasn't really there anymore.
oh
They
yeah,
couldn't understand. They couldn't. Your understanding of that, yeah, is that they weren't processing, but we don't know at what level that is. I mean, my dad was pretty much what appeared to be asleep for his last couple days, but so we don't know how much they're taking in and how much they're understanding. Um,
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
not that they don't know that, we don't know what their level of awareness is. We don't know what that experience is for them.
Well, and we talked about it, I think last week, talked about, a lot of times as far as adults go, it's talking about, um, oh, but my mind went blank. We talked about instead of early grief or understanding that it's grief, they think about it as,
Um, yeah, we talked about this with Jen Luther. You might not call it grief. You might just, having to deal with all this, my frustration, my
overwhelmingness,
feeling
all that kind of
overwhelmed by
stuff.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just feeling, yeah, it's a lot to deal with. It's overwhelmed. It's frustrating. It's kind of burdensome. And your loved one, their parent, whoever has, dementia, but they're still functioning, or they're just agitated, or in that stage of in between, being able to do for themselves or not, or you're worried about their safety with driving and things. And we need to stop and say, this is a change. This is no longer the person that taught you how to drive. I mean, it is still that person, but their cognitive capacity has changed. Yet they are also still an adult. And we talked about the changing of the roles and just, but realizing that they're still the parent, they're still the grandparent. And keeping that in mind, um, try to stop and imagine that you were that person. And also, you are not the same person as far as what you want might not be what they would want. So, thinking about that. And if you have the opportunity to talk with older loved ones early in the stages or, before anything happens, finding out what it is they would want, and trying to respect that as far as I don't want to burden anybody. If something happens to me, just take me out and shoot me. All these things people might say. But I'm getting to, um, and they don't always know. I know my grandmother didn't want to be a burden and she went to a nursing home first and then she decided she did not like that at all. And so they found a caregiver and she went home for her final days. Um, so people might think they know, what they want, but it can be difficult to accommodate that. But knowing more in a nostalgic way, if we're getting to the end of our days, and, we knew we only had several months, what would we like to do if, how would we like to spend time? What would we like to do with people that we love? What matters? Music, um, watching a video of something, sharing a memory of something, a favorite thing to eat, finding out what those things are. So that can be kind of a fun little game you could play at family gatherings, just as far as, or just send an email chain around, or connecting however you connect with people virtually. You know, what would you do? What would you want? And kind of get thinking about it, so we can honor people's feelings. And
Well, and I think one of the points they bring up at the very end of this is that, understanding that what you're going through is normal, that it is, don't push it off, that it's not what it is. Like you said, if it is grief, understand it, live with it, and but not know that it's unusual to feel sadness or grief or
or
any of these
anger,
things,
or
any of
right.
them.
And you say it's normal, but there's a variety of, whatever you're feeling is normal for you. It,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
can
there you go.
it can look very different for different people, and it's okay. Yeah, find some support. We talked last week with Jan about tapping, whether it's group tapping, even if you don't share, if you're in a group of other people, um, you seek the benefits of participating in that. Don't you have some tapping things you can join along virtually with, Don, to just watch a video people can play from the website?
They can go on my website under the EFT part of it. I have some videos there.
There's some sample. You can tap along with the sample videos. You can join him on a call. At some point in the near future, we're going to have your Zoom nights where you do free live tapping
Yeah.
call, but reach out to Don for more specifics. To working with tapping, you can learn the process yourself. It helps, it can be helpful to have someone else, but it's not required.
Well, it always helps, what I always teach on is that initially to get into it, it's really helpful to have somebody to guide you along to understand the terminology to use. 'Cause I mean, everybody comes back and says, "Well, I don't know what to say." So you've got to understand that. You got to understand what what purpose the tapping has and what it can do for you. Um, you have to understand when to do it and how to do it, and that a lot of people come back and go, I just didn't know exactly when to do it right. So there's a lot to it, and so having somebody there to get you going on it, work on it for a while, and then at some point you have it become part of your own, and you're able to say the things you need to say. But
And
always help.
even it's still helpful. I learned EFT before you did, Don, years and years ago. And there's the benefit of having someone to witness what I'm going through. And it's
Mhm.
like a therapy session, but so much more. And I have, someone we've known a long time that I do tapping sessions with, and I did with Jan in the past. That's when I first learned it. Um, and there's some benefit to that. The insight of the other person. And different EFT practitioners are all different. Maybe you had an experience and you weren't happy with it. Well, everybody's a little different and their approaches can be a little different. And I remember Jan Luther always saying that it's forgiving. There's no exact way. If you learned a little bit, you can use whatever you know. You're not going to cause damage.
No,
Um, you can't really do it wrong, but it does to get you in the flow and digging in, because it is going to kind of tap into what you're experiencing,
mhm.
and to be able to move forward with it, to be able to almost, reframe how you process and think things. And that can be hard to imagine from the beginning of it. Yet we're dealing with all these feelings, and all the older we are, the more things we've had in our past that have affected us. That when something happens, you see your father there in a hospital bed, who knows what it's triggering from your past, right? If you were sick, friend, whatever. There's so many different factors that we carry around with us of other things that have happened that affect our feelings in any given moment like that. And it's there. You can't just push it away and say, I dealt with that or whatever. These other things are going to come up, unexpected things. You might find unusual things happening either when you find out, oh, they have Parkinson's, oh, they have Alzheimer's, oh no, they broke their hip and now they can't go back home, or, you're in the middle of dealing with their decline or they've passed. Maybe it was even sudden. You can't anticipate how that experience is going to be for you.
Well, and think about this too. It goes beyond just here. What you think up here affects this. And as we talk about caregivers and taking
Affects your
care
whole
of the
body.
affecting the journey they're on, a lot of times the caregivers can become ill themselves because they hold too much in. They don't let it out, and that affects the body just as much as it affects the mind. So they want to keep that in mind too. So
Hmm.
anyway, thank you for joining us today. Did you want to add something?
No, you have the wrap up. Go for it.
Let me remind you, thank you for joining us today. We hope you really enjoyed it, and we hope that you can pass it along to somebody where it can really help. You know, if there's somebody in your life that's going through this process, pass this along because we've interviewed a lot of people on our website.
Yes, be sure
Um,
to check out the Jan Luther podcast that we just aired, the previous podcast. She's a EFT master. She's both of our mentors. She's a friend, and she's powerful. And she has her wonderful book, Grief is Mourning Sickness. You
mhm.
can find links to that there. She wrote that book after her son passed suddenly and dealing with her own grief with things. And the topics we've covered have been quite varied. Sometime we'll have to do kind of a summary of different things we've covered. That would be a fun little podcast and different people we've interviewed.
Oh, and we'd love to hear your comments so that it can help us to show what you want to hear and what you want to know about with this subject. Make sure to leave a comment wherever we're hearing the podcast from. Um, if you're finding it difficult to stay calm during your day, or if you panic and get overwhelmed and becoming more frequent, we invite you to explore my discovery series that can help you through this, that can tap you through this. You know, I always like the saying, wait, tapping does what? But when you go through a process with us, you'll end up coming back by saying, "Hey, look what it's done for me," and that's the big difference of it. You know, if you navigating the challenges of caring for an aging loved one, you want to check out our senior care page on our website. You can also find wellness tips, caregiving insights, and more helpful tools at our website, focusedhealthyfamily.com. You can connect with us on the social media, Facebook at Focused Healthy Family, Instagram at Focused Healthy Family 1, and YouTube at Focused Healthy Family. Join us every Thursday when this podcast airs. Join us by going to FocusHealthyFamilyPodcast.com. And remember, how you treat your children and your loved ones today shapes their future and yours.